Hey everyone, this is the Retrospective when Jeremy, my friend, and I are talking about engineering leadership topics. And this is the second part of our 8 episodes in the first season when we discuss my article that I co-wrote with Péter about getting hired as an engineering manager, focusing on the interviewing stage. When we recorded the discussion with Jeremy, we realized it's far too long to publish in one episode, so we cut it to 2 parts. If you missed the first part, I advise you to stop now, go back and start with that because this is just gonna hang in the air for you then. But if you followed that part and you're here to listen to the second, then we are continuing with the various interview stages. Thanks for listening and on to the episode now. All right. Moving on to the hiring manager interview. Everybody knows it's a key interview. You're talking about your future boss. If everything goes well, they talking about a future member of their team who's gonna run one of their teams and can be a big contributor to the success or the failure of their work. So what I really liked is I did some research and in one of the articles or somewhere it came up that what your goal is with your hiring manager interview is to show that you can be trusted with making decisions at the company. I think that that's a very nice ways to summarize what this is about. Like, not about, it contains everything. Like, you have the experience, you have the skills, you have the good gut feeling, you have everything that helps your future manager to trust you and delegate you stuff and that you will make the right decision for the company. So I think
love
I really like that part. I forgot where it's coming from, but now I can take credit for it. And the other part is, it's like the dating analogy works really well here because at the end of the day, people stay at companies because they have a good manager, even if the company is shitty, or leave the company even if it's good if they have a shitty manager. So figure out if you can work with the other person. You can imagine working for them. With them.
And I love the format generally of your article where you're giving like example questions and so on. I think that's really helpful.
That was based on some of the feedback I got from Ben and Péter. I'm grateful for that because it's much clearer in this. And I mean, we could talk hours about why these questions are helpful. I hope they are more or less self-explanatory, but
You're never going to get through all of them, but, maybe over the course, if you have a second interview or whatever, you might have another chance, but pick the questions based on the context,
Yeah, and don't pick questions only to show that you're smart. Because
definitely not.
You're generally interested in, like maybe you're coming from a company where you had 3 years of frustration that technical depth was never a priority. That's probably something that's important to you. So ask your manager what is their approach to managing technical depth and balancing with feature development. Concrete examples. What is the team working on now? What are the challenges the team is facing now? You can find out a lot about this. About the company from this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Cool. Technical test. Not every company does this. I think we should write a long article about why we believe engineering managers shouldn't code. But it doesn't change the fact that a lot of companies believe that engineering managers should be technical. Let's just say that, and that I can agree with. I had a recent interview process. I needed to do a little coding exercise and system design. I'm writing about this, but my advice is don't look at this as a test. Also try to look at this as a way to figure out how you can work together with the people at the company. If you have a problem, be very vocal, like ask back questions, just like you would do with feature development. You're talking with the PM, they're coming with a new problem. You naturally have a bunch of questions to understand it well. This is great in a seemingly simple coding exercise also, to confirm some of your assumptions, make them explicit, show your way of thinking, and don't, like, if you have some technical background, if you used to code, even if it was 20 years ago, with a little bit of practice, you're gonna be fine. Like a lot of engineering managers are very afraid of this interview, and but if you have some developer background, it's not a huge.
Just a question on this. You know, I know last week you did an exercise, or it was last week, on getting, you know, a ChatGPT to code for you, kind of, and you guided it. Just curious about this. Like, maybe this is like a totally different parallel question, but I am wondering whether that could be an interesting technical exercise for engineering managers. Say, okay, we're going to give you ChatGPT, we're going to watch you, and we're going to talk with you, but here's the thing that you need to solve. And this, so
like
then
from an interviewer's position.
Yeah, if you're in interviews, so it's okay, you have ChatGPT, here it is, or whatever. Prompt it and get it to build this thing. What, you know, like your email parser thing that you did. You might have some parameters around it that they need to do. And I think it can be really interesting because I don't know. I'm just curious what you think. Yeah,
I agree. I would love it. I don't think it's happening.
No.
Maybe we should ask Péter, you know, my recruiter friend, that maybe some companies do this. I think it would be awesome because it shows a lot of skills that are relevant for an engineering manager, arguably more than I don't know, implementing bubble sort. But
yeah, exactly. You don't need.
It's just there is too much stigma, I think, about AI assisted coding.
My personal view is that that's real BS, because the reality is that your engineers are probably paying for ChatGPT even if you don't give it to them, and paying for you know, others' AI subscriptions and using it. You know.
It's that's all I mean. I want to be clear in my opinion. I love it. I think it's a great idea. I'm just thinking, based on what I'm seeing, that it's not happening yet at the majority of the companies, for sure. I would guess it's not helping you if you bring up AI-assisted coding in a technical test. I would when I did this interview, I was explaining that I could share my screen and work with my own environment, and I said that I'm using this cursor, you know, this AI-assisted VS Code fork for development, and the interviewer immediately said, "Okay, but don't do it with AI. We want to see you solving the coding."
Yeah.
Okay, sure. I didn't plan to, but
yeah. No, I think that's if you know, if they're not putting AI on the table, then I wouldn't bring it in yourself. I definitely wouldn't, and I wouldn't try and cheat on the side.
No. And a lot of people are doing it, to be.
Yeah. But I do think, like, you get caught out, and then it's an instant no. So why take the risk?
Yeah, I mean,
better
breaking
focus
the
on
trust is immediate rejection.
Yeah, just focus on communication instead. But I would say, like, I'd love to devise some kind of tests around that. You know, like build a technical test where, you know, you test people's ability to prompt and to understand what's being code that's being generated and to correct it. And I think that can be really interesting.
The more I think about it, the more I love it. Like, it's showing you skills about reading code, figuring out what the code does. It's showing you, like, you can display your way of thinking in pull requests, because that's very similar. Like, the code is coming from AI or large language model, not a human, but still you're looking at code and making it, if you are running it, or if it be the proper solution for the I love that. In fact, maybe we should write an article about advising hiring managers to ask candidates. I would say it can be arguably a better test for like a senior engineer than asking them to implement an algorithm.
Yeah, I mean, certainly for an engineering manager where you're expecting some level of technical understanding, I think it can be. I think it can be pretty good. So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another interesting rabbit hole.
Yeah.
But
onwards
for 2024 June, I would advise not to bring up AI and
exactly.
do a little preparation. I think even if your skills are rusty, you spend 1 week with lead code or the similar sites, and you're gonna be fine. Usually companies are not requiring the hardest problems to solve. The problem I had to solve was a very trivial giving back change in different banknotes after a purchase kind of problem.
Yeah.
Companies are looking at this test also to get to know you a bit better. Like, what questions are you asking? Are you sticking to your solution even if it's challenged, or are you open-minded? Are you stating your assumptions? What are your assumptions? What edge cases do you recognize? Are you prematurely optimizing or more pragmatic? There are a lot of stuff that can come up.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
And the more
Onwards.
interesting test for engineering managers is a case study.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very typical step. You get a engineering manager problem, sometimes about reorganization, performance of a team, a typical situation that there's a problem statement and you need to prepare your solution, have a small presentation to, usually it's a panel of peers and mixed managers. And yeah, that's it. I think it's a good opportunity to show your expertise and experience. I wouldn't look at it as sometimes see people complaining that, oh, the company making me do free work for them. They have this problem. They want me to solve it. No company does that. Who would trust someone coming from a street solving a problem they have when they have all the context and they know all the consequences and everything? So look at it as a good opportunity. And, the same stuff applies that I said at the technical test, that don't be too self-confident. Don't stick to your solution. If it's challenged, keep an open mind. Understand that you don't have all the context of the company. Make your assumptions explicit. Ask a lot of questions. Yeah.
One other thing that I've experienced, I've also experienced like having to submit within a certain time period, kind of like an essay.
Yeah.
And I've actually shared a couple of those. I was just looking on my website, but I've essentially had I published my answers to some of those.
Were the companies okay with that?
No. I think I didn't share the company, and like one.
No, but these are
post that I
generic
have.
enough. I don't think it would be a problem. But
yeah, like this one. I'll share this.
Yeah.
This one. The question was, what is your operating system to ensure that the team sustains this ability over time? I think basically this is all about sustainable delivery and how to ensure that. And so I kind of covered that, what I felt was sustainable and how to manage it and so on. I had another one where it was about growing a manager of managers. The question was, what's your training? So this is like a VP of engineering type role or CTO type role, but what's your training model for a director or senior manager so they can do this, which is the sustainable delivery and so on themselves. So how do you train someone else? And I also had one which is, how can you help a team that's struggling to deliver? And so I had to produce these essays. So I had a hypothetical scenario and then had to write an answer. My most extreme one I did was years and years ago. I interviewed at Gartner for a Gartner analyst position, and their process was you went to their office, and then we had they gave me a computer in a room. I was on my own. And they said, we need you, and it wasn't on the internet, and here's the topic. I want you to write. You have 3-4 hours, whatever it is. Do whatever you can on this topic. And it's kind of...
No internet.
Yeah, and then, right, so that was, you had to try and write as much, it's not volume, but like really write something coherent. You didn't have a lot of time to edit. I can't remember, was it 2 hours, or it felt like reasonably tight in time. And then you had a break. while a couple analysts or several analysts read your essay, and then you had a group interview where they challenged the ideas in your essay.
Wow.
I think that's the hardest one I've done,
Sounds
because
like
you
a
have
fun day.
super smart people. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, I did get the job offer. I didn't do it. I didn't work at Gartner. I always have a question about that, because I always think, what if? Because Gartner is a great place to work, and the analyst community there, and just this collegiate atmosphere. I kind of miss it. I wonder, like, what would life have been like? So, but yeah, it was. Yeah, that was an interesting one, and I think you've got to embrace
I guess
these
I would
challenges.
still, because one of the things I'm saying here is that it's a strong statement that interviewers, they don't care about your solution, but how you got there and how you present it. Because the implication in that is that it's impossible to describe the complexity of a problem set with a 1 or 2 sentences. Every company, every team, every product is different. So logically, there is no right and no wrong solution. There are right solution for a right set of problems. So being able to show that from these 2 sentences, this is what you deducted, these are your assumptions, this is why you think your answer is the best solution to this problem, but leaving it open if some of your assumptions were wrong, then it's a totally different thing. At least this is what I'm looking at as a manager. How are they structuring their answer? What is the line of thought? How are they making these decisions in their advice? So yeah, don't worry too much if you're getting the right solution or not. Worry more about how you present it and how you get there.
Yeah, and I think that even applied to the Gartner interview as well. And they were looking
That's how
at
I wanted to connect.
how
Like this is how I was thinking how I would solve this problem, and I think that's how I would have solved it. Like if I hear someone challenging my solution, I'm interested, because that shows an interesting other angle, and then it's a good debate and discussion. And yeah, I mean, the interviews are tests, sure, but they are also tests to figure out if you can work together with someone. And even if you have a bad solution, but you have a good conversation about it, that's much better than having the right solution, but being very, pig-headed about it and not accepting any challenge or even if you have the right solution. That's worse.
Totally agree. Yeah, totally agree.
Cool.
I had a question right before we get on to this last the last 2. Something you didn't, or last 3, but something you didn't cover in here is psychometric tests.
Oh, yeah, because I have 0 experience on that. Tell me about it. I can share my opinion.
Well, yeah, but okay. But I mean, it's kind of like, the salary thing, how much information do you give? I mean, if a company says that as part of our process, we do psychometric testing, do you, and let's say maybe you and I are less fans of psychometric testing and so on, right? Then do you say, this is not the company for me, or do you just embrace it?
I mean,
my
what I can say is
embrace it.
Exactly. Yeah, I would never say no to any kind of interview, or never say never, but it would be very rare, because the experience gives me value by being more experienced in something that's coming up. And so yeah, if the company would say that as a part of the process we do these tests, I would say, okay, bring it on. I'm curious. Inside, I'm pretty sure that I'm not going to work for you, but I'm curious about the process. Yeah, maybe I wouldn't do the 5th of it, but the first or the second I would.
Yeah, no, what I would say on the psychometric testing is used to be much more common, like in graduate programs, when you were, like it was part of like the day or 2 of testing that you did. It was part of the overall experience when you went into graduate programs. It's occasionally, I last year I had an interview process where I went through exactly that psychometric test. I think you've got to go for it. Don't try and fake the answers. You've got to be yourself in it. Like, don't try and create a different persona. What a good test of the company and the recruiter and so on is the kind of debrief they give you about it, with the brief about why they're doing it, and also the debrief and what like how they explain to you your results. And I think like the one warning sign of any company that I would be really worried about is they don't give you the results of the psychometric test, and they don't explain how they use it or whatever. And
Do you think it's still relevant in this climate? Because giving a feedback, explaining the results, and spending time and energy on this when they, especially if they not gonna hire the candidate, it's a waste of resources for a company. I guess my question is that you would still treat it as a red flag?
Yeah, I think when you use something, whether it's an interview, you owe people feedback from an interview. And it's a sign of class of an organization, of the kind of feedback that they give you, even if you don't get the job. And I mean, I do think like with the psychometric testing, I think you just shouldn't blanket say no, because maybe the company's intent is completely different from what you think. Maybe they're genuinely trying to build a more diverse team and a more neurodiverse team, and they know already how the rest of the team are, and maybe they're genuinely trying to find someone different. Now, I think that's actually very rare in the case of psychometric testing, but you never know. And but it's all down to how they interpret the results now. And there are some top-class, world-class organizations that have used psychometric testing in part of their hiring, and those are very high performance organizations. So I just, I personally can't say I'm 100% against them, but it wouldn't be my go-to personally. So I think you just got to see it through, and maybe it turns out like this aspect of why the company does it is offset by many other great things in the company. And it's just like many of the other things, you can accept it because there's other good things positives that you can see. And that's why I say don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. But I have seen it. It's more rare. It's rarer today, but you need to be prepared for it.
I mean, I think it all boils down to the fact that interviewing is still a lot of guesswork and a lot of full of bias from the company's point of view. Like you're taking a huge risk and a huge bet on someone. You have a very limited means of figuring out if they're going to work out or not. So companies try everything to increase the chance of getting a good hire. And especially in this market when there are a lot of candidates and the risks are higher for companies, I can imagine maybe this is going to come back. All kind of weird stuff is coming in. Like I didn't mention this, but maybe I should have the self-recorded interview when you receive a list of questions and you need to submit a video recording of you answering those questions. Super unhumane. Scales probably very well if you have hundreds of candidates, because you can even use AI to summarize their answers and just talk with the 10 most interesting ones. I didn't mention this because I haven't seen working, and I think it's an anomaly. Like I don't think it can stay long.
Yeah,
especially.
Well, we talked about it when I was talking about the CV application process, where I had to record an intro video, and I do think that that's actually a really good way for companies to filter all of the random applications, because if you say for your application we need a short video, it cuts out all the a lot of people who are not serious, all the tire kickers and the speculative submissions, because you have to kind of make an effort. I think it's easier to screen a bunch of videos from people.
Yeah, maybe it cuts out the bottom 10%, but maybe it cuts out the top 5% also, who have a lot of interesting opportunities and they just don't want to. But yeah, it's not a good argument in this climate.
Top 5% are going to be headhunted for things like that anyway. They're probably not likely to be applying. So,
but anyway, I think,
and if they are,
for
then
an engineering manager position, for an engineering manager position, it's less likely. It's a higher risk position.
Yeah. So now we're advancing in the process, Peter. And
Yeah,
this
we're
is like,
almost done.
there's a couple critical calls here coming up. This executive call, walk
Yeah,
me
and
through this. What's the main, what do we want to get out of this? Like, what's our objective in the executive call?
yeah, I mean, just a disclaimer again that this is more true than any other phase, that you might not get a chance to talk to an executive on a line manager role, especially if it's a huge company. You probably will talk with a CTO or CEO. If it's a small startup or a scale up, a few dozen people, then yeah, definitely. Your goal is to understand the organization. I think that's how I summarized it. 'Cause you're not gonna get too much into the details of your day-to-day work. You're not gonna get, yeah, all these technical informations and anything. But this is a unique chance to talk with someone who doesn't just know the strategy, but shapes the strategy of the organization. So you can have a meaningful conversation about stuff we mentioned earlier about the company strategy, how they are making decisions, things. The example questions that I listed are trying to get at the culture and the strategy of the company that can help you decide if this is the right fit for you or not.
Yeah, I think they're great
I don't
questions.
think it I don't think it's more about convincing the person, because usually, especially good executives, they don't make these decisions. They let their team handle the decision. Maybe they're going to veto someone who they didn't like for some reason. But otherwise, what I saw is that they are trusting the team. This call
Yeah.
is more for you to convince you that this is the right company for you.
Just a couple of comments on the questions, and maybe this applies to some of the others as well. But you have one, for example, here about how do the company's core values influence day-to-day operations? I think the way I would ask that question is, again, as a behavioral question.
Yeah.
And I would ask that question in a positive sense and not in a negative sense. Don't be seen to be trying to catch someone out. So I'd say, I noticed that the company's value has X, Y, and Z. Can you tell me about a time when those values shaped a decision related to day-to-day operation, or something of that, bit fluffing up the question, but ask really in using a positive question, but like really look for the answer around that.
I love that actually, and I really like what you did. You took the effort, went on the company's website, figured out what are the values. You showed some connection with one of the values, important enough to waste some of the short time you have with the CEO, because you want to understand how the company works. It displays a lot of engagement, and you can get some valuable information. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, and I think it's the same with how are key decisions made within a company. You can, for example, you can look, if you know some of the history of the company and there was a pivot or something else, ask about that. Ask, how did that happen? Yeah. And I would, I mean, this is a tricky one, but you really are not, don't be seen as trying to catch them out or whatever. When you mentioned like something in the last section about managing tech debt, because maybe you've been in a company where your tech debt was really badly managed and you're trying to avoid that, but you can come across as like a wounded bird if you probe on an area that your previous company was bad at. Don't worry, this company is going to be bad at something else that will drive you crazy if you get the job. So try not to be seen as too like obsessed about a particular thing that you're trying to get away from. That's the danger, and especially executives tend to be, or the senior person that you're meeting, which might be your manager's manager or something like that. They'll pick up on all of this. So focus on like really going towards positive type of questions. And I mean, frankly, these people tend to have egos. Maybe we all do. So, give them a chance to talk. Show a level of interest with insightful questions, but do try and make them behavioral in your questions to them.
Yeah. Just like with every other interview stage, you have two goals: to sell yourself and to confirm or understand the company that it's a good fit for you.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, this one is really important. Like, I think your spidey sense can tell you a lot about this person. And I have to say, like, if you have a reservation and you get to, don't necessarily bring it up. But if you get to the offer stage and you feel like it could be a real issue, maybe that's a moment where you have an informal conversation with a future team member and you ask something subtly related to that. Or if you feel like you built up a bit of trust with your hiring manager who's going to be your future boss, maybe, and you feel that there's a big difference between them and this exec or whatever, you can subtly ask a question related to that. Not like direct about the person or whatever, but I think you should double click on those in that final, if you're getting to the offer, if you have an offer, I think you should double click a little bit on it because, like if you get a bad impression of an executive in a meeting, I can assure you that that's when they have the best foot forward in an interview situation. And so they may not be a great person to work under in the organization. And you may be better to, even if there's lots of good things that go into your decision-making criteria, but it may mean that it would be a good one to walk away from.
Yeah, I mean, it all depends on the detail. Like, what is your personal state? How much flexibility you have? How many more jobs can you try out?
Exactly.
And also how you can. But you have a very good point on after the offer, it will be the next part of the series. But it's not just the company who sets interviews. You have all the right to say that this is a very attractive offer. I have a few questions left. Can you help me scheduling an interview with my hiring manager to clear those up and discuss? And I had a similar situation when I was on the other side of the table and we were hiring people to a company that was navigating some troubled waters. And my manager says me, what can we say to candidate? Like, we need to sell the company. What can we tell them? And the advice I gave them was that don't lie, be transparent and acknowledge all the troubles and problems we are navigating, but trust the candidate that they're going to make the right decision for themselves. Don't assume that still this package is a good package. Like, we had a huge autonomy in the technical stack. We had a great team. We had a good product. We had some purpose. Sure, there were some problems with leadership and finances and everything. But for some candidates, it was a deal breaker. But others, they said, this is fine for me at this stage of my career. I can learn a lot of stuff. I can, like, the packages sounds good. So yeah, I guess my advice on this context is if you're the candidate, figure out, to your point, what does your gut feeling tells you. Try to confirm them and get some info from the hiring manager, but don't burn everything on one red flag.
Yeah. Definitely not. Okay. Onwards to, this, and by the way, this is a long podcast episode, but this is actually reflective of the current interviewing climate, which is there's a lot of stages there. You are going to have, it's like just that is what you need to be prepared for. And I love that you cover so much in your article because it is a marathon going through all of these. And I think I love the comprehensive nature with which you've approached these. It really helps people with the right mindset. And so I think it's important, like I think this episode will probably have to have shorter clips of the different stages, but I think this is a really, it's a really important topic. So onto the team interview, Peter.
Yeah, I see this an important step because oftentimes you don't get to meet the team and that you're supposed to lead. And this is totally appropriate, I think, to reach out to the recruiter and say, I would like a chance to meet the team. Can you schedule something where I can meet at least a few people from the team to have a discussion? It's really not so black or white. This is more about chemistry than maybe any other step. You need to imagine how you would work with these people, if what problems they are having, what is the team dynamics where you need to come in and and improve the performance of the team or help the team to perform. The other aspect is that if you don't have a chance to meet the team, because oftentimes it's a new team and they are hiring a new manager because they are setting up a new team, try to meet some engineers still if it's possible. You can get a lot of stuff about the culture of the company, how, like they're probably going to have a different opinion than their managers about technical adapt, about decision making, about delivery, and all these aspects. I'm not saying they are right, but it's a good aspect to have when you can.
Yeah. And their questions will tell you about the challenges that they're facing, because they're going to be probing for someone to solve that. So, it's really interesting.
Yeah, I
you
think
probably
this
likely
is the section where I did a lot of example questions about the developers can ask from you, and you should prepare for some.
Yeah.
Yeah, these are both. Yeah.
Okay. What a marathon! But okay, so we got through all of this, Peter, and now we have an interesting call. The offer. And now, I think it's interesting. If I could summarize what I read here in the offer call was, thank them and don't give anything away. Ask for some time and go away. Like, that's the main takeaway. If you get through all of this and you have an offer, basically don't jump to an answer directly.
Yeah, it's especially true if the first time you're hearing the salary, and that's very important new information to you. The offer call is it's not an objective state of mind. It's very subjective. You're under influence of all your preparations, all your struggles to sell yourself to the company. It's really hard to be objective in this situation. So what you try to get is this objectivity. And this is why, if you remember in the beginning of the series, we started with capturing your preferences. This is the time to take out that list of preferences and compare the offer and the compromise you're about to make and make a decision. But I'll write more about this in the next. Exactly, that's the point.
Yeah.
Try to buy some time. Even if they are insisting on giving you pressure, you can say that I really need to discuss this with my partner because this is a life-changing decision. I don't want to take it lightly. I respect the company enough not to jump too quickly, but I'm giving everything to give you an answer by the end of the week or something. This is going to be fine. I think, to be honest, as a hiring manager, I would appreciate this maturity because really an important decision. It doesn't mean that you should be showing any kind of doubt or disappointment about the offer. You should really be excited about all these discussions led to an openness from the company to welcome me and pay for me and work for them. Celebrate that. Be happy for that. Say that you're really excited about the opportunity. You need some time. They have to understand that you're very much subjective, emotional, or under the influence of all these emotions. So you just need to sit back and think about this and give an answer in a few days.
Yeah, I think definitely the show your enthusiasm, to thank them. I think don't forget to thank them.
Definitely.
Yeah. I mean, especially because the recruiter at that point has really been representing you. They may need to represent you further in a negotiation, which we'll talk about in next week. But the other thing I would say is, and I think maybe that's what we could do in a follow-up is like, have a list of questions, try and understand the offer, right? Offers have usually a different set of components to them, whether it's the salary, maybe a bonus component, how the bonus is actually allocated. There is usually stock options, which is a huge and confusing thing. And I think probably there you need to, there's a whole other set of articles that are out there about that, but you do, and it could be region specific, because I think the offers in France, for example, when you're working for a French startup are very different than working for a UK startup versus working for an American startup, and then how they do that. So I think having some maybe stock questions, or if you're not sure, just saying to the recruiter, I may have some questions. Can I send you in writing? Can you send me your offer in writing? Like, I think the one thing I always say in this is, can you send me it in writing? Can you break it down into writing? Can you share exactly what the offer is, any of the benefits in the company, and so on? I think it's reasonable to get, and usually they have that lined up, and most good companies have kind of like an offer letter
Yeah, you
ready
don't
to
need
go.
to ask for a lot of places.
But get the offer in writing, but just make sure you get it in writing in case they don't, right? And I do think it's then worth having, we're going to talk about that next week, but I just tell them in this, I may have some questions. Can I follow up in writing with you my questions? Just give yourself let them say yes so that you can follow up in the future negotiation stage. Some of that might be on a phone call, but I think receiving the offer in writing and so on, and basically don't give an answer is really good advice here. Yeah.
I didn't think of the writing aspect. I have it in the draft of the next article that anything you achieve in a negotiation, you should have in writing. Not just necessary because you might want to sue the company if they don't hold it, but natural things happen. Maybe your hiring manager is going to be long gone by the time you need to use some of the benefits that you negotiated. I don't know. It helps everyone to have it clearly. Maybe you misunderstood something.
I mean, for me here, it's all the actual components of the offer. What are the healthcare? What's healthcare look like? Super important in America, especially. But like, can you provide me all the information about your healthcare provider? All of that stuff in writing. It's kind of like helpful, so you can just parse it. I think that's an important part. I had a question for you on this. Like, so sometimes I've asked for more time than a few days. So I think there's a conversation about the timeline. The other thing I wanted to ask you was, I have seen companies that use exploding offers, which is you get an offer, but if you don't respond or say yes within 24 hours or 48 hours or whatever, it's off the table. How do you handle that?
If you asked me this question 1 year ago or 2 years ago, I would say very confidently that that's a bluff, and just feel free to call it. Like, you can say that you understand there's a time pressure. You still need to make a responsible decision for the respect of the company also. For this, you need to talk with some people. You need, 5 days. If the offer expires, then you're going to be sad because it was a great opportunity. But you understand that they needed to move on faster, and good luck for finding someone else.
Yeah.
It's a bluff. It was a bluff. In this climate, I would be more careful because, by all means, maybe they already sent out 2 other offers. Or maybe not, because that would cause them trouble. But maybe they have 3 candidates who already passed all the stages. Maybe you're the first who had the offer. The other 2 candidates they have in the pipeline, they would be perfectly happy with them also. You had a little bit more, benefit for some reason.
You edged it in the interview. Yeah.
Yeah, but if you take a week to say no, the other 2 candidates might be gone by then. So maybe they are forced to say that, okay, in 2 days, if you don't give an answer, forget it. So
exactly. I think it's good advice.
Climate, it's not like it was a year ago.
No, not at all. Yeah.
So
any final thoughts?
Yeah, no, not really. I needed to be explicit about this. I felt I need to be explicit about the fact that this can take a long time in this climate. There is less pressure on companies to move fast. So, because as I explained before, the risk is high for the companies to make a good hire, or the risk of hiring someone who doesn't work out, they will take their time. So expect a lot of rounds, expect to get a refusal at the last round, which is super frustrating when you already invested a lot of energy and can see yourself working with that company. And it's hard to understand sometimes. Maybe you're not even going to have any kind of feedback about what didn't work out. It's not about you. Don't take it personal, because it's going to impact your mood, and it's going to impact the willingness of pursuing further applications and progressing with it. It can be very depressive, especially if you're nearing the end of your savings.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say, one thing I would say here is, and you said about the extra time, because they have maybe if someone else has, if you're in a situation where you're not the first candidate after the final stage interview, and the company says they need more time and more time, just assume positive intent. Maybe they have made an offer to someone else. Maybe that person's negotiating for more time. Don't be a dick in that phase. It can literally exclude you when that other person later says no to the job offer, and they would have maybe come to you next, but because of your behavior in that point, maybe harassing the recruiter or whatever, they go past you to the other person that they kept on hold.
Exactly.
Be patient, be positive, show your best foot forward in all communication. Do follow up, like say, show your interest in that final bits, throughout the whole process. Just keep saying, I realize that things might be taking a long time throughout the entire process, but be the person to follow up if you don't hear for like a few days or a week or whatever. But don't be harassing people,
Yeah, no, this is very good advice. And a lot of people we say it also, that this is a company's market, but let's try to be a bit more empathic to company. Like, this is not a great market for companies either. Like, the climate, if you don't get to profitability, maybe you have a few months of runway and then you're out of business. It's really hard on company, and they take a huge risk of opening up an engineering manager position, bringing on a new leader to their teams, and of course they do everything to try to find the best candidate and minimize this risk. So yeah, show this empathy. Yeah, say that you perfectly understand that it takes time. All you're asking for is, I don't know, the date when you can get, or I don't know, an answer by the end of next week, because we have another process. This is also an interesting topic that we didn't talk about, how to handle when you have multiple processes that are nearing an end. My advice in short is that it's fine to be transparent. Don't come up with bullshit excuses why you cannot answer. You can say that it's a very interesting opportunity. I need to figure something out, and I have another very interesting opportunity that I would like to take it till the end, so I can make an educated decision about them.
In fact, I think you should be really transparent if you're ending up in a sort of a parallel process. I think it's a crucial aspect of the way that you communicate, and obviously it gives them enough context to maybe they really want you as well. If you don't give them that, maybe they don't put their best foot forward. Yeah. So I think this is like, this is a really long one. I know it took you quite a bit of back and forward, Peter, but there's so much golden advice in all of this.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I hope it's useful, especially in this climate. I hear about a lot of very frustrated engineering managers looking for jobs, and engineers also, especially if you think about the US, where the market was the hottest and remote work was okay, and a lot of people even sold their houses and moved to the countryside, and now they are struggling. They have no chance to get back their old salaries, and maybe they're going to need to relocate again.
Or they are stuck in a job that because they've moved and they can't, but there's nothing else there. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, for those who are listening to this, who are looking for a job, whatever we can do, like reach out to us individually, happy to give you advice, help you.
Definitely. Yeah, ping me. That's what I wanted to say. My email is on the website. It's hello@petersays.com, but I'm happy to if you have a dilemma or an area that's unclear, I'm happy to answer, or just comment on the article or find me a link.
Wow, Peter. Well, I think this has been our longest podcast episode yet. That I hope the people listening appreciated the depth of it. But really, thank you for the huge amount of effort you put into this article and the series. I think it's really helpful.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks for the great questions and comments. And you identified a lot of stuff that was missing from the article that makes me confident that this was actually a very valuable discussion and not just reading out what was in the article. So yeah, thanks everyone for your attention. Hope you found it useful. Follow and subscribe and like and feed the algorithm so other like-minded engineering managers can find us. And give us some feedback if you think something was missing or something you liked or disliked. We really appreciate it. Otherwise, see you next week.
Yeah, see you next week, folks.